Welcome to Topic Talks, where we talk about the topics you care about and leave out the ones you don't.
We talk about what most news sources don't: media, movies, and the multiverse.
We even invite guests to come talk topics with us.
Come join in on the fun.
Let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the giant conversation. This Topic Talks. I'm your host, Aaron Klingsmith. Man, I can't talk today. And joining me today is
Logan.
Hello, thank
everyone.
you. I had a brain fart.
You're okay.
So last week's episode was a throw together. This week's episode is a little bit more kind of, structured. We're kind of going back to what we were doing. We don't, however, have our Netflix retro and fresh pick of the week. I've just been way too busy. It's really hard with only one working thumb. For those of you that didn't know, last week I hurt my thumb right before the show. Had to push everything back. Everything got pushed back. Then nobody was going to come on my show, so I was on my way down to cancel it. And then Logan prevailed. Man, it was a week. And so I've just been kind of recovering from that. Now I got to get my stitches out. It's actually, my thumb's looking kind of good now.
It's healing up pretty good,
Yeah.
for the most part.
So how have you been, Logan?
I'm good. I don't have that Wolverine healing power like you do, though. I can regenerate and everything like that.
That'd be Doctor Who.
Is that more Deadpool?
That'd be Doctor Who more. I think it'd be with that Doctor Who regenerating power. I just change my face every time I get cuts.
Hey.
Life-threatening cuts, and I just.
If you're too embarrassed about getting cut with a mason jar, just you know what? Face shift this week.
Face shift. Let's get rid of this face and pick a new one.
Start fresh.
No, anyway, so no fresh and retro Netflix pick of the week, but I did watch I watched a really old movie, and then I watched a newer movie, but they're not on Netflix, so they wouldn't really count. So we might talk about those if you've seen either one. But that'll be later. Right now, with everything going on with the Hurricane Harvey, I wanted to cover a couple stories of efforts being made to help the people around, help the people in Texas. And this one, there was a Pizza Hut that just stopped taking orders and started making as many pizzas as they could and started delivering them to people via kayak. So it was a manager of a Texas Pizza Hut, and he had decided that all of his workers were going to make as many pizzas as fast as they could, and he had called. I'm trying to think, because it's someone called their husband to gather up some kayaks and meet him at the restaurant, and it's. So there's literally, if you follow the link, it's the first link in our description. If you follow the link, there's a whole bunch of pictures of these guys with kayaks, and there's actually a couple of people in waders, and they've got like a kayak just full of pizzas, of the pizza bags, and they're like pushing it around. And then if you look in the background, if you look closely in the background, there's people on an air mattress floating around.
I was wondering if that was like a pool raft or something, but no, sure enough, that is an inflatable mattress.
And I just realized that too. So, but it's funny because I've always wondered, ever since the Parent Trap, the new, like the remake with Lindsay Lohan, at the end when they push their stepmom out on the like they put her air mattress in the middle of the lake. I always wondered what would happen if you did that to someone. So apparently they float enough. So good prank idea for somebody sleeping on an air mattress. That's a heavy sleeper. You just drag them out of their tent on their air mattress and push them into the water and see how far they go. But you got to give them a paddle, though.
Right.
You got to give them a paddle and a life vest.
Can't be that cool.
So then that way, if they can actually put on this, so they can paddle back to shore, they can put on the life vest and be safe. Or if you happen to be sleeping in a cabin that has a garage door on the side of it, you could just, open up the garage door, pick up somebody's cot, walk it outside, close the garage door, and go on with your day. That works too. I mean, I've heard. I didn't do that. What are you talking about?
That sounds like personal experience.
Not at all. Not at all. Um, so no, that actually was a personal. I'll tell you the story. So I was in Boy Scouts, and we were at a camp, and this section of the camp used to be owned by the Girl Scouts,
Mhm.
and so like most of them had cabins, and the cabins had garage doors on the side of them because for summer things they would open that up and have like crafts and stuff inside
Mhm.
rather than just having a door. They'd have this giant garage door. So we were all like so we had our cots like lined up against the wall and past the door. Well, there was one kid who decided he was going to go to sleep early,
Mhm.
and his cot was the only one that was right in the middle of the garage door. Mine was on the other side of the garage door, and there was another big kid on the other side of the garage door. So we're like, there's two big kids, one on each side of him,
Mhm.
and we were in on the plan, so we weren't getting carried out into the snow. Plus, our cots weren't perfectly aligned.
Right.
And we're sitting there, we're bored. We're like, what are we gonna do? We've played euchre like 50 times, so that's out of the question. What should we do? And we're sitting there, and we're like, I hear from down the way. I'm like, well, we could always carry the kid. Or they're like, man, look at that kid sleeping. Usually they'll play pranks on someone like that. And I said, what? What? And so we did hear the idea from down the table, and we were the two older scouts at the time. Him and my buddy, we looked at each other, and I'm like, we should do that. He said, no, we'll get in trouble. And we heard a voice from down the table. No, you won't get in trouble. You're good. If you haven't discerned from this time, it was a scoutmaster that was hinting at these ideas.
Oh no.
So we're like, okay. And the Boy Scout cots we have are the old military style cots, and like springs and everything, and
Yep.
a mattress, and then but they got these nice like on the legs. It's a nice loop on the top.
Mhm.
Makes a great handle.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
So we opened up the garage door. He got on one side, I got on the other. We picked up this cot, walked it outside, set it down. Oh, we had to cover him first.
Yeah.
We
Oh, yeah.
covered him up. We didn't want him to freeze.
Mhm.
When you're playing pranks, you got to be,
You have to have some level of consideration. It's
Right.
supposed to be a joke.
Right. So we open up the garage door, we pick up the cot, we walk it outside, we set it back down, we close the garage door, and then the assistant ranger comes in from the camp, or he was there while we were doing the prank, and he goes, we're debating it. They're like, somebody needs to go wake him up. I'm like, leave him out there. He's good. He's covered.
Oh, he'll wake up eventually.
And we're trying to think of cruel ways to wake him up, like throw snow on him. And the assistant ranger's like, no, I got it. And he walked out there and he tapped him on the shoulder. He said, hey, son, you're supposed to be sleeping inside the cabin. And then we pulled, and we're all looking at the window outside the garage door. And he got all mad, and he got up into the snow. And so we're like, oh crap, his doesn't have his shoes on. He's in the snow. So we open up the garage door, and he walks in, and the guy's like, hey, you could have just stayed on your cot. They would have had to carry you back in. And then we went over, picked up his cot, put it back inside. But he got all mad about it, and the ranger's like, man, if I were you, I would have just woke up and go, okay, and laid back down. They'd have to carry you back in.
I just pulled my blankets over my head or something. Like, that's fine. Guess I'm already out here. Might as well tough it out.
But I mean, if you would have played it off like that, it would have made it so much better.
Oh, exactly.
Anyway, so fun little pranks. Anyway, back to the story. So I thought this was really cool. And I heard this originally from my pastor on Sunday. We were talking about. He's talking about how we had so many things to be thankful for, blah 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 blah. And the sermons are very very very, I don't know. I don't want to say they're just about God. They're a little bit about the scripture.
They have practical applications in everyday life
so much
as well.
So much. And not to go on about my religion too much, but it's pretty much we're not ones that go around and say you're going to heaven, you're going to hell. We're not judging people. We go out into the community and we show people what we do. It's like, we do Relay for Life. And tell them what events we got coming up. Just trying to get people to our events, whether they're at the church, at the school, wherever. That's what we do. And so he's got a very, very, here's what I was looking for, progressive. He's a very, very, very progressive pastor. That's what I love because when he started doing sermons, there was one sermon he had named Lord Voldemort. And it's on a cassette tape. Yes, I said cassette tape somewhere. and I want to get a hold of that because I never got a chance to hear that sermon. I missed that Sunday. But his sermons are always very, they're very funny and they're very very progressive. So it's very relatable for someone my age. Um, and which makes it super nice. It makes it a lot easier to to kind of understand what he's trying to say when he's doing his sermon, which is cool. And he was talking about this in particular, and that's where I first heard it. And I was looking for stories, and I'm like, oh, I'll do this one. This is really cool. People have probably heard about it, but they haven't heard us talk about it.
Hmm.
And I thought this was so cool.
It definitely gives. I mean, this is kind of not directly related to the topic, but I know I know you know my brother Aaron, and it's
Yeah,
we get talking, especially when I'm either sometimes when I've been drinking or I'm very sleep deprived. We'll start
or
talking,
both.
well, yeah, or a mixture of both. But we'll start talking about some big serious things. It's I find it kind of interesting. It's funny because. And I'm not saying this is what the owner or the managers of this company are trying to do, but it's kind of interesting because in my opinion, looking at it from a business standpoint, that's a genius thing to do for your business. To hand out the pizzas to people in need and stuff like that. And
Right.
it goes to show that there's a little human in everybody.
Uh huh.
And because you wouldn't imagine, and of course I understand that I imagine Pizza Hut's at least a prior franchise business, so it's to each owner's discretion, obviously. But just the way that some of the owners or the managers would come out of pocket for these, because they still have to buy the materials and stuff like that, the dough, the sauce, the cheese, pepperoni, whatnot. But that just it's so nice to see that in people's time of need, and that's kind of uh, back to my brother and I. We were talking a little bit about last night about the whole. I'm not a, and this will sound bad, but I'm not a big believer of like pay it forward. I feel that you shouldn't have to what I mean is like the whole, I pay for your food in the drive-through, and then I want the clerk to tell you to pay it forward now. I feel that without ask, you shouldn't have to ask. You know what I mean? Like as far as if you're giving out like these folks handing out free pizza, they're not asking for a pat on the back or anything
Right.
like that in any sense. It's just they're doing it just because that's what you should do as a human being. So
Right.
the way I see it is a lot of these people that are affected, whether it's someone reading this article and being so amazed by this this act of kindness, or someone that's affected by it, maybe this a family that received a free pizza. It just makes the world a happier place, and these people will who've been positively affected by this, again, by viewing it or receiving that, will hopefully in turn go do something good. So I say that's it's definitely nice. It's promoting an air of positivity around kind of a crappy situation for a lot of people.
Well, and back to like the paying it forward. I like a certain kind of a. I feel like it's an alteration of that idea. Like okay, say if I pay for your food,
Hmm.
and then this is really does happen. I pay for your food, and then you're like, oh, that was nice. I'm gonna pay for the next, because you've already got your money out.
Right,
I'm gonna pay for the next person's food.
right.
I'm gonna pay for the next person's food. One thing that I've adapted onto that idea is my church has these cards. I call them random act of kindness cards.
Yeah.
And the cool part about them is it doesn't tell you your name.
Hmm.
It doesn't tell. It just tells them, you know, that you're from this church, and it gets the
Right.
name out. So the whole concept, and this is the big example that I use it for is like, okay, I pay for your your food while we're in line.
Hmm.
I would hand the clerk this card
Yeah.
and say, give them to this when you tell them that I paid for their food.
Hmm.
And then it just says random act of kindness cards, you know, keep the random acts of kindness going,
Yeah. Yeah.
pass this card along, or something like that.
Hmm.
And then on the back, it's got our church information, like a little Bible quote and
Hmm.
whatever. But then they can look and go, oh, that's person's from Kirkridge.
Yeah.
The more these cards get out, the more they'll be like, oh, this church is full of a lot of really nice
Yeah.
people.
Well,
I like the concept of the card.
Hmm.
Not to cut you off, but
No, you're okay.
there was a song that I like, and it's called I'm trying to remember the song. Every time I try to mention it, it's like the chain of love is what it's called,
Okay.
and talks about how there's this this girl or this fancy car that looks like it doesn't belong there with a flat tire.
Hmm.
This guy in an old pickup truck pulls up and gets out and changes the